Howdy, y'all. This is Taylor Ursula of That's So Pisces, and it's time to talk about our first quarter moon in Taurus. Okay, so this first quarter moon has a lot of activity around it. So let's maybe take a step back and look at what's happening just before this first quarter moon so that we can better understand what this first quarter moon is all about. This first quarter moon in Taurus takes place at 27 degrees on Friday, February the 16th at about 7 a.m. here on the West Coast. So we're going to back it up a few days and rewind to Tuesday, which is when Mars enters into Aquarius and promptly meets Pluto at 0 degrees. Now, let's revisit the idea that we are in a strength year. And let's really look at this Mars-Pluto conjunction, because these two planets individually represent different layers of our instincts. We can think about Mars as our surface level understanding of our motivation, of our drive, of our energy, and our capacity. So where we have Mars is where we see how we approach things, what we are interested in approaching, and what that process looks like for us. Pluto is then connected to some more of our subconscious instincts. So things we don't understand about our motivation, things that we can't see about our drive, things that are deeper within us that are influencing these things, but that are not known to us here on the surface. So these planets are often thought to be connected. Mars is thought of as the kind of lower octave of Pluto because they are thinking and talking and moving through similar things. And we also think of Pluto as a modern co-ruler of Scorpio with Mars, or at least I think they co-rule. If you've heard me talk about co-ruling before, then you know how I feel about it. But we think about these planets kind of co-ruling Scorpio together, and so it makes a lot of sense to see them meet here to have us think about these things, knowing that Scorpio is a sign about the emotions that influence our instincts and how we sort of move throughout spaces, including others. Now, this conjunction also happens on Mars Day, which makes it extra intense or extra potent. Mars newly in Aquarius on Mars Day, getting these sort of downloads from Pluto, bringing us into a deeper understanding and a deeper sense of alignment between the conscious and subconscious drive and motivation within us, right? Think about Mars and Pluto meet approximately every 2 years and have been doing so in the sign of Capricorn. So this is their first meeting here in Aquarius. So we're probably getting some insight into some new parts of ourselves, right? If that conjunction's been happening in the Capricorn part of our charts, then we've been getting a deeper sense over the past 16 years of what our drive and motivation look like in that part of our chart, right? So now we're in this Aquarius segment of the chart, and we're going to start getting some new information there about what motivation and drive looks like in the Aquarius part of our charts, and probably how they're connected because they're both ruled by Saturn, right? So how one on Earth kind of shifts into how we think about things, how we communicate about things, what ideas we think are important. So on Wednesday, the moon then comes in and enters into Taurus and immediately squares Pluto at 0 degrees. So you may recall that at the Aquarius new moon last week, we had the moon enter Aquarius and immediately make a conjunction to Pluto. We now have the moon entering its sign of exaltation and making a square to Pluto. And we can think of this as a pretty quick turnaround in terms of what we'll be confronting that was awakened at that Aquarius new moon. If that Aquarius new moon showed us breaking free from something, breaking the mold, breaking out of our shell, sort of catalyzing some big significant change around us, then the moon coming in and squaring Pluto may involve some sense of recoil around that. Who am I? What did I just do? What does this change about what I need? If we think about the moon in Taurus being exalted, it's because in Taurus, it's able to, theoretically, access or otherwise provide itself with the resources it needs to feel emotionally stable and grounded. Now, obviously, if there are other conversations happening around that moon, like there are here, then we might experience that differently. But the moon entering into Taurus wants to feel like, how nice, I can now tend to my own needs. And Pluto is confronting from Aquarius saying, what are your needs now, though? And like, what does it mean to now get these new resources? What does this disrupt for you about what you have known about yourself? What insecurities are coming about as we think about what these new needs are and what those resources might look like and what it means to go acquire them. So there's all these questions as we undergo these pervasive changes deep within us that on the surface we might feel very I'll just use something weird. We're gonna feel weird about, right? We're gonna feel unstable. We're gonna feel maybe thrown or uncertain about what those getting those feelings taken care of even looks like. Maybe we're getting a sense of what the feelings still are at this point. We're still getting that understanding, and so we don't know yet what that ultimately means for us. And then the moon comes in and squares Mars at 1 degree. Okay, so we might find ourselves feeling reactive about all of what's being brought up within us. We might find ourselves feeling a little bit out of control. We might feel our ego maybe kind of flaring up a bit. We might feel defensive about what it is we're learning about ourselves and what we might be unlearning about ourselves and what kind of power changes are happening as these other sort of bigger life changes are unfolding. The moon then makes a sextile to Saturn in Pisces at 8 degrees. And so this kind of continues the conversation that may have opened up just after the Aquarius new moon. I mentioned in that video that there was a deep 14-hour void of course happening after that initial new moon, meaning that the moon was off the clock as soon as it met the sun. And so what I described was that we might not have been able just after that new moon to really process what was even beginning, what was kind of unfolding at that time. It may not have been until the moon was able to connect with Saturn and Pisces that we really start to understand what the long term is going to look like and what consequences may arise from what changes were put into motion then. So we have the moon making a sextile to Saturn and sort of extending that conversation. And that may be some grounding energy. We might feel really triggered about the here and now as the moon squares Pluto and Mars. We might feel really disrupted in our immediacy, in whatever's happening in real time. And the sextile to Saturn may help us slow down a little bit, may help us zoom out and think about the long term. And we may get a deeper sense of how these changes will unfold over time and what that will mean to us over time and kind of pull us out of this shock of this immediate moment. And then there's a conjunction to Jupiter at 9 degrees. So we start off with some really rocky energy that might be really unsettling, but we are met with these social planets that help us connect these changes to kind of our bigger sphere. Jupiter showing us where there may be opportunity in all of these changes, where we might see the role that we play in our spaces evolving through the changes that have been set into motion, whether we have set them into motion ourselves or whether there is just change happening around us. So there may be some benevolent, I'm thinking hug, some sort of benevolent reception that occurs that allows us to soften some of that harsh energy that comes up. On Thursday, we have Mercury in Aquarius make the same sextile to Chiron and the North Node that we saw happen from the moon at the new moon in Aquarius. So a week later, we have Mercury coming through and making these same connections. Now, Chiron and the North Node are at this point both at 16 degrees. So the tension I described in the Aquarius new moon video that the moon was sort of picking up on and maybe feeling triggered by is even more palpable at this point. In fact, Mercury is picking up on the conjunction that is going to happen between these two bodies just days after this moon. So Mercury might be asking us to really start thinking about what the moon picked up on at that time. start having conversations about that. And in fact, that's true because the moon then comes through and squares Mercury. So Mercury has this conversation with the North Node in Chiron, revealing to us again those stories that we've been carrying, harboring about where we've tried to lead, where we've tried to initiate, and where we've been rebuffed or denied. And Mercury saying, okay, so what did you think about that the moon brought that up last week? And had you make these changes sort of based on some of what those narratives were revealing to you? Mercury coming through and saying, have you started to put that into motion? Have you started to talk to people about what that looks like for you? What ideas are starting to take shape around what you're feeling being triggered here? And the moon then comes through and squares Mercury and says, okay, let's talk about it. So we might find ourselves very quickly engaging in, again, like conversations about what's coming up for us, about what we're setting into motion, or about what's unfolding. We might see ourselves actively coming up with ideas at this time and starting to implement them, starting to see where they fit in whatever our kind of framework looks like right now. And then the moon meets Uranus, right? So we might really be kind of reactive again, with everything squaring Pluto and Mars, and Mercury having this conversation with the North Node and Chiron as they're about to meet. Again, providing that sense of instability to us and uncertainty as we get a glimpse of what we're moving toward and what this is supposed to mean to us at this time. So that conjunction to Uranus may really see us kind of pushing for something, making something happen, embracing what this change means and what it looks like to us. We may see ourselves kind of stepping into new territory, right? Again, from this place of I had these intentions at the Aquarius new moon. I have no idea how to move toward them, or I'm feeling really sensitive about my ability to move toward them, or I'm breaking out of something that's been holding me back from being able to initiate and lead. And so that conjunction to Uranus may see us really stepping into that. On Friday, the moon makes a sextile to Neptune in Pisces at 26 degrees, and this may continue to help us zoom out and get an understanding of what this will mean in the bigger picture of things. It may help us tap into some creative energy, really use our imagination to get a sense of what other possibilities may be connected to the changes that we're seeking now or otherwise moving through. And we then have the moon square the sun at 27 degrees of Aquarius. So we are wrapping up Aquarius season now. And it's worth noting that Venus is not only overseeing this lunation that takes place on a Friday, but it's a Taurus moon, so it's being ruled by Venus. And Venus is on this day at 29 degrees of Capricorn. So there may be even more of a sense of urgency to wrap things up, to consider what resources will be necessary in the long term for the changes that we are moving through at this time. And something lovely happens where Venus moves into Aquarius on this day, and just a couple of hours later, the moon enters into Gemini and then trines Venus. So even though Venus is no longer ruling the moon at this point, since the moon has moved in Gemini, there is some sort of embrace that takes place. It's in air signs, so it might not be a warm, cozy embrace, but it may be conversations about what kind of people are going to be involved in some of the changes we're moving through, right? What our current relationships look like, and who's going to be part of some of those changes, who will be helpful to us or otherwise present with us as we move through them. How are our values evolving at this change and at this time? And ultimately, what connections do we have access to in the immediate that can help us navigate whatever is changing sort of in the background? So again, it's air signs. It's not necessarily like, here's cookies for everything you're going through, but it is, let's talk about this and let's start to make some plans. So from those air signs, they're able to strategize and start making things happen. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do our Aquarius new moon recap. We're going to look at what story opened up for us at last week's new moon. We will then continue and pull cards for this Taurus first quarter moon. So stay tuned.
Okay, so here we have our Aquarius new moon recap. We started off with the Four of Wands, and we've been talking about revelations we're having around maybe some of our foundations, some of our happy places, some of our, home spaces may not be reflecting all that we hoped, and we are pursuing this narrative of thinking about where we're going to go next or what kind of plans we need to make in order to kind of rectify that. So if you missed this narrative, go check it out now, meet us back here, and we will continue with our Taurus first quarter poll. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So we are continuing our lunation story that opened with the first quarter, with the new moon last week. Okay, and so here we are going to be asking questions around energy that is accumulating now. We're asking about doubts and complications that are arising with this energy as it accumulates. We're asking about gifts that we can access through this energy as it accumulates now. And lastly, lessons that we can make sense of as we approach the full moon. Okay, and a reminder that if you want to pull along with us, you can head to priestessbaby.com/shop. That is in the description, and you can download the free PDF. Okay, yeah, that feels like, yeah. All right, a little card ASMR for you. All right, and let's go ahead and check out this story. Okay. Energy that is accumulating now. Oh, yeah. So we kind of talked about that last time, right? We talked about where we might be recognizing a feeling of disappointment or a feeling of lack surrounding some of our, like our hearth, our home, our heart space, whatever those four walls protect right now. We recognize that there was something missing, or there was something that is no longer, right? And we saw that Five of Cups show up. We said that the Five of Cups was what this new cycle may look like as it unfolds. So it is not shocking at all that we would see ourselves faced with the Eight of Cups as energy that is accumulating now. This sees us preparing to set sail on a situation likely connected to that Four of Wands, whatever that represents for us at this time. We are recognizing the weight of what we've built. We're feeling grief. We're feeling sadness around walking away from something that we've spent so much time building and investing, pouring our hearts into, if we think about cups, right? And so there is something somber about this, but we also know that we are kind of following the sun. We're sort of following the warmth. We're following the path toward our next chapter of happiness, whatever that might look like. Okay. Doubts and complications that arise with this energy. What are we having to hide as we prepare to set sail, right? This is energy that's accumulating. So we're not here yet. This is building, right? We are building up the strength or the courage or the faith to take that first step away from what we've invested in. We may start to see that manifest at the full moon. Okay. So in the meantime, as this energy is building, as we are making preparations to step away from something, what are we having to hide in the meantime? That makes a lot of sense. If we're planning, like, let's say you're planning a breakup and you are kind of trying to get your ducks in a row, or you're trying to, again, build up that courage. You know how you feel, but you're still feeling drawn to stay, right? So what are you then kind of hiding? In those situations, many people kind of go through the motions of connecting with a partner, even though they know they don't necessarily mean it, or I believe we call this like maintenance affection, where it's like, I'm doing this to maintain the status quo at this time until this ship is ready. Okay, maybe we're preparing to leave and we feel a lot of imposter syndrome about our reasons. Maybe we are invalidating ourselves, saying, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, it'll get better. Oh, it will pass. This will pass. Okay. And maybe we're in this place of resisting this departure, right? Maybe that's the energy that's accumulating now, is this pressure building up within us to walk away, and yet this resistance of committing to that. And maybe we aren't really sure who's hiding what. Am I hiding something? I'm not even sure of what I'm hiding, because I'm in denial of this place, and so I'm then in denial of the uncertainty or the questions that I have. I'm gonna I'm gonna be in denial about the shady stuff I see going on around me that's calling me to leave. So here are some examples, right? This doesn't have to be coming from the situation that we're departing. This can completely be us. This can be connected to the situation we're departing. You tell me, all right? But we're definitely feeling this pressure to prepare, or some part of us is doing this preparation and some part of us is doing this questioning. Is this really what I have to do? Am I sure that I can pull this off? Can I leave? Like, do I have what it takes to leave? Am I going to get what I need? Do I believe myself when I say that it's time? Okay, there's a lot of questions here. So then, gifts that we can access through this energy. Okay. Maybe we need to tap into that fire part of us. Maybe we need to remember what we're angry about, right? Because we don't just get here by chance. Like, this is an 8. We get here by building up to this place. We don't just accidentally end up here. So what kind of fire within you is even initiating this desire to depart, right? What do you need to recognize within yourself about what you have to bring to this situation? Maybe this is just accessing a gift of courage that we kind of talked about in the beginning, where we might be resisting this because we're waiting for the courage. A gift we can access is being able to fight for what we believe in. This isn't the 5 of Swords, where it's like, I'm feeling insecure and I'm not sure if this is the right move, so I'm gonna just pick a fight with you to kind of like have something to fight about. This is not just like, I'm gonna play mind games, or like we're just gonna keep battle. I'm gonna wait until we fight hard enough that there's no coming back from it. That is not what's here. What's here is, I'm tapped into what drives me. I'm tapped into what I am fighting for in making this departure. Remember that we started off with the 4 of Wands, which is a home base for us to contain this energy so that we have something to spring from when we have something to fight for. So this is maybe a natural continuation of what we've opened up with the last cycle, which of course I hope for, and of course would make sense. So a gift is tapping into what energy we have to fight for ourselves, for what we know we need moving forward, for the future we envision for ourselves, especially if we're thinking about the 2 of Wands that showed up in last week's reading. Maybe this is a gift I can access, is like really getting in touch with my inner fire. Maybe this isn't even something that externalizes outside of ourselves. Maybe it's accessing this gift of, I've got something in me that needs me to pay attention to it. I have some sort of drive, passion, need to put myself into the world. And perhaps focusing on that within ourselves kind of illuminates for us where this is holding us back from accessing this, okay? Lessons that we can make sense of as we approach the full moon. Okay, it's time. It's time to, well, I'm thinking of this in two ways. The first way that occurred to me was it's time to make the push. And so we could think about this as like the wheel is about to turn. Maybe we see that as the full moon next week. Maybe we see that as whatever situation we, like whatever is sort of like beneath all of this and trying to guide us toward growth, Jupiter, toward opportunity, Jupiter. This card might be saying, we really got to put this energy in and like commit to this because the window is here. The window for whatever we're trying to make happen here is here. So meaning that we can, lessons that we can kind of make meaning from here are, if I put in this effort now and the wheel spins, it will land in my favor. Okay, so that's one way I'm seeing this. The other way I'm seeing this is we need some of that faith. Faith is another word I mentioned over here about our chances of landing on our feet as we take these steps away or as we separate. And so this might be signaling to us that the wheel is spinning now, and we need to have faith in the efforts we have put forth thus far in thinking about how we're going to land from this. We kind of need to tap into a sense of knowing that we've been doing the work, hopefully, to allow ourselves to land on our feet. So think of this kind of like two sides of the same coin. If we're thinking about this as, I've put in the work, so as the wheel spins, it's going to land in my favor, then we still need to stay committed to it. We can't back out now, right? Like if we've already been making this push and the wheel is gaining momentum and something's going to pan out here, then it would be really silly of us to bail on this right now, right? And if we are just starting to put in that work and we're feeling really unsure about whether or not it's worth it, then this is our signal to trust that the work we put in now will pay off for us when that time comes. Either way, we're seeing some benefic support. And I'm kind of thinking about that as the moon conjunct Jupiter, right? Like after the kind of tumultuousness, I think last time I made up tumultuosity, after all the tumultuosity, Jupiter is here to kind of catch us and to say like, hey boo, I got you. Like there's some crazy stuff going on, but if you stick with me, kid, we're gonna I'm hearing like gangster like we're gonna like make millions, kid, like we're gonna hit the big time. That's all very Jupiter energy. So it's time. We could be seeing some lessons about like, oh, I have avoided this for so long that's maybe why this is feeling so stressful. And that's super real. Let's make space for that very human experience. It might be that we have felt all of this and haven't really had the signs present to confirm for us. And that is really human, right? Like we'll know something for a long time, and the worse we feel about it or the more scared we are about it, the more we will seek validation from the world around us. And it might be that validation wasn't necessarily showing up before now, and maybe we've been sitting on this, and there may be some lesson here about, I really got to pay attention to timing when that shows up for me, because now I'm scrambling and I'm feeling like this is bigger than it needed to be. And maybe it's time for me to get a sense of how this could have been easier if I had done this sooner, or if I had approached this without the hiding maybe, or without the the imposter syndrome of can I even do this, or without the knowing what it is that I'm here to fight for. Okay, either way, even if that is where you are, have compassion for that. That's a normal human space to be in. And we still take this lesson from the upright position then of, okay, work I put in now is still going to count. Work I put into this, maybe I'm late to this, maybe I've been in denial, maybe I've been staring at this ship for months, just like knowing I got to get on it, but really, really emotionally bound to what I'm leaving. And I recognize in this moment, this is my cue. Work I put in now will pay off. Okay. Don't let yourself get caught up in the I should have. I'm here to like pop all the should bubbles. Okay. There's no should in my space. So, all right, y'all. Whew. We are ramping up to a really interesting, impactful story here. I'm so curious to see what is going to show up for us in the full moon. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe. I will catch you next week when we talk about that full moon. So I'll see you then.